And just like that, we are back with part two of our Doobie Brothers What Were Once Vices Are Now Habits. We are going back there to 1974. In the first video, which we just wrapped up a second ago, we featured one of the great album tracks from this album, a song from side two on the original vinyl, a song called Tell Me What You Want and I'll Give You What You Need. I love that title. That is one of the all-time great song titles. And the song itself, one of the all-time great vibes, man. What an incredible tune by Patrick Simmons. And also on side two of this original fine LP was a song that just absolutely slayed me out of the box in early 1974 when this record came out. And I wore this album out both sides, front and back, every song. I had every lick on this album memorized, but there was one song that stood above all others with the test of time. Well, they all have aged actually very well. I shouldn't say that. Not stood above the others in terms of the test of time, but stood above the others in terms of just the depth of the impact in my heart, the way I felt it. And that is the Tom Johnston classic from side two there, Another Park, Another Sunday. And here are the brothers Doobie. It looks like we have, I'm looking backwards, but it looks like we have the great Patrick Simmons right there. And next to him, it is the great Tyran Porter, the incredible bassist of the old Doobies lineup. Right in the middle there, we have the legend Tom Johnston. And then I believe that is Keith Knudsen left to him. And then all the way down there at the end, we have John Hartman, the fine drummer for the Doobies. Here's another picture of them. And they sure loved their fur coats back in the day, didn't they? The Doobie Brothers, Another Park, Another Sunday. Now, the funny thing about this is I'm showing you these various 45 sleeves here from the singles. But here's the funny thing. I always loved this shot. This was one of the poster shots from the inside of the album. Or maybe it was the shot from the back, the back side of the album. I always loved that shot. What a great shot. But here's the interesting thing about this. Check this out. This is one of the original 45 single sleeves for Another Park, Another Sunday, which was the first single off the album. And look what the B-side was. This is kind of a crazy little anomaly in pop music history and Doobie Brother history. The B-side was Black Water. So the album, the great album, What Were Once Vices Are Now Habits, comes out there in early 1974, and they released, Warner Brothers and the Doobie Brothers released this great song, Another Park, Another Sunday, as a single. And it does get up to number 32, okay? Not a huge hit, not one of the Doobie Brothers' biggest hits, but not a total bomb or failure by any stretch of the imagination, right? Not to mention that the song has just got groove and feel all over it. Like this song was never going to get old, right? So it didn't really matter what it did on the charts, but nevertheless, it wasn't a huge hit, but it did make a little bit of a mark on the charts, right? Well, after this, the Doobie Brothers released a couple other songs, including Eyes of Silver, trying to either duplicate the success of Another Park and Another Sunday, or perhaps even exceed it. And the next couple singles didn't really do too much. And that's when several months later, so this comes out in early 74, it's all the way into the fall, the late fall of 74, November of 74, when they finally get around to releasing the B-side, Black Water, as a side of its own. And of course, you know what happens next. They go all the way to number one. I mean, Black Water becomes the biggest Doobie Brothers song ever, right up to that point. I think later on, What a Fool Believes, or Minute by Minute, one of the other Doobie Brothers with Michael McDonald, version 2 may have even topped Black Water. But Black Water goes on to just become a monster hit single for the Doobie Brothers, and it really sort of propels this album in a way. And it's probably all these years later what this record is maybe most remembered for. This is the album that had Black Water on it. But to a hardcore Doobie Brothers fan like myself, and as I said in that first video for Tell Me What You Want, man, I was way into the Doobies starting in 1972 with that great Toulouse Street record, and listened to the music and Jesus Is Just All Right and all those great songs on that album, Rockin' Down the Highway and Toulouse Street. So many great songs on that album. And then the next album, they followed up with The Captain and Me. And then the next album, they followed that up with this one, What Were Once Vices. And it's just, I was way, way deep into the Doobies. But even with that being the case, when I heard, well, first of all, the whole album is great. But yeah, when I started hearing Another Park, Another Sunday, wow, wow, wow. That one's one. Even among so many other Doobie Brothers favorites. And I always loved all those Tom Johnston songs. I mean, Tom Johnston wrote so many classic songs back in the day. Songs that are not just Doobie Brothers classics or 70s classics or classic rock classics, but just actual rock and classic songs, all-time classic songs. He's written so many great songs. And yet, even among all of those other favorites by Tom Johnston, man, this was the one that just got straight into my heart and straight into my soul. Even as a 16-year-old, right? When I'm hearing this music, there was that bittersweet longing and just that passion and that yearning for a relationship and for a connection, for a deeper connection, for a love connection, a romantic connection that Tom Johnston so beautifully poured into this song about losing a girl. He said he wrote it about losing a girl. And boy, I felt it all the way down there in my high school bones in 1974, and I could never get this one out of my heart, out of my head, out of my soul. Loved it straight out from the very beginning, and it still gives me chills all these years later. From 1974, and this classic album, God, I wore this record out. And there they are. It is the great Tom Johnston out in front of the Doobie Brothers. Another Park, Another Sunday. Oh, this one just achingly beautiful. Come on. Come on. every single time, man. That song is just a killer. Always was. God, I just remember back there in the day, this album comes out in early 74, and I will never forget that summer of turning 16. And just this was a record that I just never put away. I just kept listening to this album, and in particular to this song, and also the last one that I played earlier there, Tell Me What You Want and I'll Give You What You Need. But this was the one that just sunk this album straight into my soul, man. Another Park, Another Sunday. There's so many beautiful aspects of this song, so much going on. Tom Johnston, just, God, what I wouldn't give to have that guy's voice. I mean, the voice that Tom Johnston, that he's really an R&B and soul singer is what it really comes down to. Tom Johnston's a soul singer. And just such a beautiful soul and such a passionate soul, such incredible vocals. That timbre in his voice is one in a gazillion. And I'd give anything to be able to sing like that brother could sing back there in the day. So you get the great vocals of Tom Johnston, unlike any other. That cool rhythm guitar part, yet another trademark of the Tom Johnston sound. But how about John Hartman on the drums, and Michael Hossack was on the recorded drum parts on this song. Just an incredible drum line. So many of the hooks and those fills are just so integral to the overall arrangement and the sound and the feel of this song. And as I said, every time the great Tyran Porter on the bass back there in the classic Doobie Brothers lineup, Tyran Porter, one of the all-time greats in my book on that bass guitar, certainly one of my favorites, one of the tastiest and most soulful brothers you will ever hear on the bass. And there he is again on this song with such a tasty bass line, just so much heart in Tyran's playing. Always appreciate that. Always appreciate the way he sort of drove this song in a very kind of understated way, and such a beautiful role for him in this song. But Another Park, Another Sunday, man, just a knockout all the way back there in the day. Never stopped listening to this one, man. And you'd hear it on the radio, not so much, right? You really almost had to be one of those Doobie Brother hardcore fans like I was, or maybe just someone who did hear it in passing and remembered it, because it was one of those songs that could really work its way under your skin, despite the fact that it didn't get necessarily a whole lot of exposure. But I think all of us Doobie Brothers lovers like me would say, yeah, man, this is one of the Doobies' classic records from 74, right? What were once vices are now habits. And then, so this is side 2 of the album, like I said, right? You got Tell Me What You Want and I'll Give You What You Need is up there earlier on side 2. Then you get to this song. And then, of course, they wrap up the album with Daughters of the Sea and Flying Cloud, which is just more incredible Doobie Brothers music. This was just such a great record, and such a huge record for me. In those formative years, man, 15 turning 16, and these dudes, Patrick Simmons and Tom Johnston and the fellas, just throwing it down. And as I said, when I finally got to see him in concert numerous times, man, one of the more impressive stage shows. These dudes could and can play like nobody's business. Great writers, great performers, great musicians, great ideas, such catchy songs, such an incredible catalog of music. And that is why the Doobie Brothers and all their various incarnations, but if I have to choose, I will tell you my favorite Doobies lineup, as much as I love Taking It to the Streets and Living on the Fault Line. And those are 2 of my favorite albums. But I got to say, if I had to choose, if you forced me to choose, it's that original Doobies lineup led by Tom Johnston and Patrick Simmons, with Tyran Porter on bass and John Hartman. Man, that was the crew that did it for me, even though I love the Michael McDonald and the later era stuff as well. But yeah, I had this poster up on my wall. I think this was one of the shots on the poster. Man, I played this album so many times. Another Park, Another Sunday. Hope you enjoyed. There was no coincidence that today being Sunday reminded me of this song, and I've been putting off these 2 great tunes that I love so much. I've been putting them off for so long. I thought, okay, Sunday is Sunday, Another Park, Another Sunday. Let's get to this. Been wanting to play these for so long and go back there and remember the impact that album had on me back in the day. Any of you old timers out there remember the Doobies, What Were Once Vices? What a record, right? Sandwiched right in between The Captain and Me and Stampede. Are you freaking kidding me? You talk about a roll these guys were on. You go to Loose Street, Captain and Me, What Were Once Vices, Stampede. There's 4 freaking killer records in a row. Oh, then you come back and they switch up the lineup with Mike McDonald and they hit you with Taking It to the Streets. 5 killer records in a row. They come back with that one after that one with Living on the Fault Line. Are you kidding me? There is 6 straight knockout records and we haven't even gotten to the big Minute by Minute album yet, right? So the Doobie Brothers were crushing this game back in the 70s. There's 6 straight killer albums before the big Michael McDonald moment, right? How impressive is that? Hard to believe. But not hard to believe because, as I said, having seen these guys a number of times, man, these guys live, the consummate pros, these albums are state-of-the-art albums, some really great songs, great performances. Sounds fantastic all these years later. Where's the current Doobie Brothers on the scene? There isn't one. That's why these guys are in the Hall of Fame. Deservedly so. One of my all-time faves, the Doobies. And I still appreciate Doobies all these years later. Don't think that I don't. See you folks in the next one. Hope you enjoyed. Patrick Simmons, the legend. Tom Johnston, the legend. The Doobie Brothers, legends. Who knows what's coming next? We got a little bit of ways to go here before we wrap up our trip through the 70s, and then we'll jump into some different stuff. But we're coming down the home stretch. About 6 or 7 more songs to go in the 70s before we jump. See you in the next one. Doobies, man. Listen to the music, indeed. No joke.